Hey, welcome to another Junior Statistics video. We're going to spend a second video chatting about the mean. Remember, an average is a number that tells us what the central or typical value for a data set. An average called the mean is calculated by adding up all the numbers in the data set and then dividing this total by how many numbers there are in the data set. Right, quick recap on calculating mean before we get on to some tricky questions. Remember, if a footballer scored the following number of goals in 10 games, we'd just add up the numbers to get a total of 20 goals and then divide that by 10 to get a mean of 2. All right, let's get going with a couple of trickier questions. Example 2. Over the season, the manager of a football team kept track of the goals scored each game and recorded it in a frequency table, which we've given you here. We're going to determine the mean number of goals scored for the season. So we're going to use the table to determine the mean. Right, well, here's one way we can do it. There were 3 times where we scored no goals. So I'm just going to start adding up all these numbers. 0 plus 0 plus 0. I don't actually have to add up 0. There were 7 games where they scored 1 goal. So I've added up 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1, 7 times. There were 6 games where we scored 2 goals. So I've added up 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2. I think I got that right. There was 1 game where we scored 3 goals, so I've added 3. There were 3 games where we scored 4 goals, so I've added 4 plus 4 plus 4. There were no games with 5, no games with 6, and there was 1 game where we scored 7 goals, so I've added 7 goals. So if I add that all up, I get a total of 41 goals. So I've added up all my numbers to get 41. Now if I go back and add up my frequency column, I get 21, which means we played 21 games in the season. So now to finish off, I can just take the total number of goals and divide it by the total number of games to get an average of 1.95. I've chosen to round that answer to 2 decimal places. Right, well, that's one way. I'll show you a slightly quicker way, especially if the frequency numbers are really large. We're going to go back and we're basically going to multiply. There were 3 times where we scored 0 goals, so I'm going to go 0 times 3. There was 7 times where we scored 1 goal, so I'm going to go 1 times 7. 6 times where we scored 2 goals, so 2 times 6. 3 times 1, because there was 1 time we scored 3 goals. 4 times 3, because there were 3 times we scored 4 goals. And 7 times 1, because there was 1 time we scored 7 goals. If I do it this way, I still get my total of 41, and then I can divide it all by the 21 to get my mean of 1.95. And that's a slightly quicker way to be able to handle finding the mean from a frequency table. All right, here's example 3. After 20 games, a footballer has a mean of 1.8 goals per game. She has an amazing game in her 21st game, and her mean increases to 2 goals per game. So how many goals did she score in her 21st game? Well, we know the mean is equal to the total number of goals divided by the number of games she would have played. We're going to go backwards and reverse this and work out the total number of goals. And when we reverse this formula, the opposite of dividing is to multiply. So to work out the total number of goals, we're going to take the mean and multiply by the number of games. Now let's start with her 20 games. So we're going to take the mean for 20 games of 1.8 and multiply it by the number of games of 20, and that tells us after 20 games she scored 36 goals. If we were to repeat that for her 21st game, after 21 games she had an average of 2 goals per game, so the mean times the number of games gives a total number of goals of 42 goals. Well, now we can just say, based on this, we can say she scored 6 goals because 36 plus 6 more gets us up to 42. So she must have scored 6 goals in her 21st game. All right, that's us. Thanks so much for watching.